Welcome to 4-H Fundamentals of Club Management. I am Jeff Dick, 4-H Field Specialist.
And I'm Jenna Hoyt, Ashtabula County 4-H Educator.
We're going to record today the presentation that we would have presented to you at the Ohio 4-H Volunteer Conference. And with that, we were going to walk through a set of PowerPoint slides. And so we will do that today via Zoom.
All right, so to get started, we want to talk about club file management and some important things that you should have in both your active and permanent files. So your active file are things that might change on a year-to-year basis, and your permanent file are things that you need to be keeping and maintaining. And all of these things could be kept in a box or a file folder system, or also in a notebook to help keep you organized. So things to think about in your active file: your volunteer list and your re-enrollment forms. So you want to have an accurate list of all of the volunteers that are helping with your 4-H club, and then also any enrollment forms for your 4-H members, for your 4-H youth, and any change forms as well. So if you have health forms for your members, you want to have those. Permission or waiver forms, those would be important as well to have on file and have easy access to. And of course, a copy of your club roster from 4-H Online. Those are things you'd want to keep in a notebook that's easily accessible for all your club meetings. Also, in your permanent file, you'll want to have things like your charter, your constitution, bylaws, your yearly financial summary, an inventory list, your TEA or your tax-exempt authorization form that you submitted to the state 4-H office, proof of your 990 filing, and a copy of your IRS determination letter. Now, if you have a notebook or some sort of file folder system, you'd want to have these sections maybe divided out in there. So maybe in the front are your active files, and then in the back you may have your permanent files and have copies of all of these. So your charter may be a copy of your charter checklist. And here's an example of the top of that form and what it looks like. And all of these forms are available for you, if not on your county website, also on ohio4h.org. So the charter checklist is the checklist you should go through annually that grants you permission to use the 4-H name and emblem. There are minimum requirements like having 5 members from 3 different families and all your volunteers being screened and having club officers that you want to go through and check off. So that's your charter checklist that gets submitted. The next document that is important is your club constitution. And this should be reviewed annually by your club and any changes submitted to your county office. This is a standard form provided by Ohio 4-H where you simply put in the club name and the county that you are representing. And again, there should be very little, if no changes to this document. It's standalone. What you do have flexibility to change or make your own is your bylaws. So here's a copy of what that might look like. And this, for example, you would give more specifics as to when your meetings are held, specific rules or dues or expectations, committees, and other things for your club. This might be submitted as well, but definitely goes in your permanent file. The next thing.
Next, we're going to talk.
Go ahead.
Next thing we're going to talk about is employee identification number, and otherwise referred to the EIN number. Each club must obtain an EIN number specific to their club and or affiliate. And when we refer to the term affiliate, that means any of our 4-H committees that would be responsible to county 4-H educator. So any of these clubs or affiliates being newly formed must have an EIN number, and of course all of those that are already in process should also have an EIN number. Regardless of whether they fundraise or not, they are expected to have an EIN number. You can use the online SS4 form. Again, that's online with the Internal Revenue Service. This form is how you request an EIN number. And again, we're going to have you request that for the club or affiliate, not for you as an individual, although the SS4 form will collect your individual name and social security number. Those are not attached to the club. This is how the Internal Revenue Service determines that you are a real person requesting this EIN number for your 4-H club or affiliate. Additionally, of course, you're maintaining tax exempt status by completing a yearly financial summary. That's an oversight that our extension offices must have of all 4-H clubs and affiliates. Those are due on January 31st, unless your county sets an earlier date, but that's when they are due on the state level. Additionally, of course, the staff at the extension office will submit your 990N annual e-postcard filing. And that is something that must be done by May 15th of each year. Please recall or remember that January 1 through December 31st is our fiscal year for the Internal Revenue Service. And so when the office is reporting on May 15th, they are reporting for the previous year, January 1st through December 31st, which again matches up with our yearly financial summary dates. We're going to move on and talk about maintaining club insurance. And with that, first of all 4-H volunteers have been through the screening process, do have liability insurance that we, OSU Extension, takes out for you. This, as you can see, is up to a limit of $1 million per occurrence. And there's more information, again, that you can find on that through the ohio4h.org website. Part of this volunteer insurance has some things that you want to be aware of, and that is that you must be working within the scope of your job description. And so the job description, which you were supplied by your extension educator, either first when accepted as a volunteer, or if you've had a change in your volunteer role, you want to refer to that. Again, this is a secondary program, and it is protection for personal injury or property damage liability claim. You will note that it doesn't include transportation liability. We do not encourage volunteers to transport youth other than your own. We recognize that is certainly your choice if you choose to do that, but do know that you are not covered under the volunteer liability insurance policy for transporting youth other than your own children. This does not cover neglect or error on the part of the volunteers. So obviously if there's some gross negligence involved, that this is not going to cover you, but for all other things, this will be a nice blanket volunteer liability insurance policy. This is not accident insurance, as we talk about here at the end of this. It's not medical or health care coverage as well. Those can be obtained through our special activities and annual accident insurance policies that are available. Please, again, communicate well with your OSU Extension professional, because some counties choose to purchase this annual insurance policy through the 4-H advisory committee or through their office. And so with that, there's already coverage for your club members and possibly you, the volunteers, as well. And one possible insurer, as you can see there, is American Income Life, and that is who we usually use, but there are other options out there as well. This annual insurance does cost $1 per year. That is for all of our members and volunteers, again. So it can be purchased by the club or, again, maybe possibly by the county, so check into that. The exception to that is that there is a $2 charge for those youth that are enrolled in an ATV project or a horse club project. Okay, so again, we could have youth enrolled in a horse club but not taking horse projects. Those would be eligible for the $1 a year program. Again, we would say to be certain that you have all youth who is a member of the club, that would even include Clover Bud members, included in those policies. There is a special activities insurance as well, which is an accident insurance that is available from American Income Life or other similar agencies. You can see the cost there of what those are. So that is something that you can choose to do if you're having a special event and you don't have the $1 a year or $2 a year coverage. This insurance does provide illness and accident coverage. So If you have an event where you are serving food, or the youth are staying overnight and being served food, such as a camp, we usually encourage the special activities insurance to be taken out in addition to the $1 a year program, just because the additional illness coverage. With this coverage, of course, you need to also think about others that may be participating in the program. If you're going to do a roadside cleanup, for example, and you know that you have, let's say, 5 additional parents and 2 additional siblings that will be helping with that are not members or volunteers of the club, you can take out that insurance for those people as well. Also note that if it was, for instance, let's say a horse show, we cannot take insurance out for spectators because we can't predict who is going to be there, but we can take it out for participants because we are hopefully enrolling youth ahead of time, or registering youth ahead of time for those events, and so we know the amount of participants that we would have coming to that event. So keep those couple things in mind when purchasing accident insurance.
All right, so we're going to talk about club funds and finances and the best way to manage those funds and finances. So of course, accurate financial management is critical for all of our clubs, regardless of the amount of money that's being raised and being spent. It's important that clubs have a checking account, that there is no shoebox banking, and that whenever we are collecting money or paying bills, that is all documented. We need to have a paper trail for transparency for our clubs, and so therefore there is no debit card use that's permitted. We're also encouraging clubs to have that checking account instead of a savings account for the same reasons. So again, you want to make sure that you are documenting everything. So with that being said, you want to follow some of these steps to open a checking account with your bank. You want to take your IRS issued EIN number and that letter with you, open that bank account in the name of the club. The best practice is to have 2 signers on all checks that are written. While the bank may not verify those signers, it's important for our youth to be learning how to write checks as a life skill that they will need in the future. So we encourage you to have 1 advisor at least and 1 youth officer as well to be signing the checks. In a case where you only have 1 advisor in a club, we encourage you to have a 4-H committee or council member on the account as well. In regards to bank statements, the bank statements should be sent to a non-check signer for review of those, and then copies should be given to the treasurer to include with the financial records. The originals should stay with the organizational advisor. So in your notebook, in that active section, I would encourage you to have a monthly tab or a monthly section where you can put a copy of the minutes and there document all the expenditures that are happening in the club. Attached to that, the financial report and the treasurer's report and the statement from the bank, as well as any receipts for income or expenses that have happened at that meeting. And remember, all your expenditures have to be documented in the minutes and have to be approved with a motion at your club meetings. Be sure that you keep receipts and invoices with your financial records. Document all of that income. You can grab an easy carbon copy receipt book and document all of the money that you are taking in. You can pick those up at the Dollar Tree or other dollar stores or Walmart as well. And again, make sure that all those are listed in the treasurer's book as well. So keep accurate records and give the treasurer's report at every meeting. Document that amount in the minutes as well. And at the end of the year, in the back of the treasurer's book, there is an audit procedure to follow. We recommend that you use that procedure with 2 advisors, 2 parents, and the treasurer to do an audit of the account each year. So here's a copy of what that receipt may look like. And so some other reminders, it is the expectation that all clubs and affiliates are handing in a financial summary report for each calendar year, as Jeff mentioned before. Included with that should be the club equipment inventory. So if your club has things like bows or rifles, if your club has chutes or buckets or tents that belong to them, those need to be documented with the estimated value on that inventory form. And again, those forms can all be found on the volunteer section under club leaders and finances at ohio4h.org. And we can't stress enough the importance of being sure to spend money for the purpose for which it was raised, and then making sure to limit any carryover funds. So carryover funds, it would be appropriate to have extra money if you were in a financial situation where your club's fundraiser didn't go as well. So it would be appropriate to have some sort of funds to carry over to buy a skill-a-thon kit or help cover project books or activity fees or other costs with your club, but we do encourage you to limit those.
And I'll go ahead and talk about the use of some of the funds. Of course, there may be memorial contributions, benefit funds and fundraisers, club disbursements for different things. So memorial contributions, if a club decides that they want to contribute to a memorial, they certainly need to not use monies that would be already in the 4-H club account for that. In those particular cases, they would need to maybe pass a hat, and parents could contribute to that so that they could do some things for the family, whether maybe they're buying some flowers, or maybe there's other gifts or things that they want to buy for them. Benefits, funds and fundraisers, sometimes someone will have maybe a disaster that they want to go ahead and help the family with. And in those cases, they're going to need to set up a special account at the bank to where those funds will be deposited into. So in other words, they're not going to deposit the funds from that particular benefit fundraiser into their current club account, but rather a special account that would be set up at the bank. Club disbursements, if a club would disband, we want to make sure that those funds are dispersed appropriately. Of course, because these are not-for-profit funds, the funds need to be distributed in a way that the Internal Revenue Service sees as appropriate. Normally, those would be either donated to another 4-H club or committee within the county, maybe possibly put towards the 4-H camp or the 4-H endowment fund. Also, they could take those funds, and if, let's say, 5 members is going to one new club and the other 5 is going to another new club, they could actually send 50% of the money to the one new club, 50% of the other club. So in other words, the funds have to stay with 4-H in this particular circumstance. The same would be the case for equipment. Jenna talked about that equipment inventory being turned in, and those items just have to remain in the possession of 4-H. Normally those would be turned into the extension office so that they could be determined how they would be distributed possibly to other existing clubs already in progress. Next, we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts of fundraising for the clubs. First of all, some things to do. Every individual should be written a receipt each time cash or checks are submitted to the club. Jenna showed you a copy of what those could look like. That just ascertains that the member has proof that they turned in the funds to you, as well as you have that receipt, which you can attach to the deposit slip when the deposit is made to the bank. If you are accepting checks, you want to make sure that all checks are written to the 4-H club or affiliate, not to an individual. That's important because we want to make sure that no one thinks that monies are being actually given to the volunteer and checks then cashed by the volunteer. We want to make a very clear trail that those funds were deposited directly into our 4-H club account. We also want you to, or prefer that you sell non-taxable food items for 4-H fundraisers. That's important because if you sell taxable items, that means you have to have a vendor's license as well as collect, report, and submit the taxes that would be collected from those items. It's a very cumbersome situation, and we really would prefer if 4-H clubs did not sell taxable non-food items. Okay, let's move on to the don'ts. Do not use the money raised by a 4-H club or affiliate to support any political campaign or issue. That would even include a county extension levy. Do not purchase raffle, bingo, or games of chance tickets or spend club funds to support or participate in such activities. And do not spend funds for any individual's benefit. Let me explain that a little bit. In other words, if you have a scholarship, let's say a camp scholarship program set up in your club, you can certainly do that as long as there's well-defined parameters for who is eligible to apply, how they're going to apply, how those winners are selected, and that there is a process in place to do that. And then once those selected, what we would do is actually write the check to the camp or to the extension office, so we're not putting money directly into that individual's hands in hopes that they then spend it for their camp registration fees. So you can see there's some similar things that clubs sometimes want to do. Maybe if there's club trips, they want to purchase fair passes, college scholarships, etc. All of those, again, we need to be certain that we are raising the funds, first of all, for that purpose, and then that we're distributing them directly to where those things are being paid at. So fair passes to the fair office, the scholarships directly to the camp or to the college, and so forth. So that concludes our presentation that we have today. And you can see we have our contact information here. If you have further questions that you would like to ask Jenna or I, here is our email address, and we certainly would entertain you sending us those questions to our email. Thank you and have a great day.